There we go. Well, happy Monday, folks. We've made it yet another week. I wanted to share this one here. I put it in my meme channel. Please share your memes. I love all the silly memes. If you have any fun ones, but it's a little fuzzy. Sorry, the quality's not great off someone's tweet here, but this is your flowchart for prospective STEM majors. You start with, are you good with things like physical objects? Yes or no? You can just shout on that and answer. It's okay. I'm assuming no because you're all here in a data science class. Okay. All right. Do you like math and or money? Yes, both. Yes. Yes, math, no money. Both. All right. Yes, both. Do you prefer to perform overt, immediate evil or slow, indirect evil? Overt evil folks, you should go into finance. Indirect evil folks, computer science. Look at that. We landed in the right spot. All right. Anyway, that's just for fun here. So what do we have going on today? We are moving on to functions this week. Functions are big. We'll spend a good chunk of time here working with functions. We've got lab today. Unfortunately, I'm double booked starting at 3 o'clock, but we can definitely get started in lab. It'll be great. And then I have to sit and listen to half a meeting before I join in, and it should be okay. So we'll come back and do more with functions. The strings chapter is not quite as interesting, so we'll probably do functions a little bit today and finish next week. We'll have to do functions with strings, actually. Maybe we'll try and combine some of those, have some fun there. But the functions, there's a lot to it here. A lot for us to unpack. So we'll take some time with functions, and we'll go from there, okay? All right, and we've got the next project we're working on already. Someone had sent me a message here. It's perfectly fine. They're like, I don't really get it. It's not much of a game. Like, do they just guess this random escape word? And yeah, that's perfectly valid. It's not really a game. It's terrible. No one wants to play this thing. But we've done 5 weeks of programming, so this is about as cool as we can get for now. So no, it's not a wonderful game or anything, and they just are trapped in this terrible game forever until they give us that secret escape word, and that's how you quote win. Sure, that sort of thing. Like, hey, you finally gave up or got out, or sure. If you wanted to make it really like puzzle based, maybe they could have figured out what the secret word was by like the third letter of every prompt in every direction that they go in. If they go in the right direction, turns into the secret. It's nonsense. It's okay. It does not have to be interesting or fun. Right? This is just using some of the tools and techniques and things that we've done for practice, and pretending it's like a game is much more interesting than saying build loops that do these things. At least I think so, because I am much more fond of doing things that look like they might be entertaining rather than just work. So that was the goal with that. We'll try and make things silly like that. So that's all. Apologies that it's not actually fun, but maybe you might think the final project is fun. Maybe. But we're still so far in the beginning here. It's hard to do really fun things until you have more programming under your belt. So I'm almost out of Coke. I forgot to grab my coffee out of the van. Have that though. I have to get before we head over to lab. I have a lot of coffee, which is good. All right, functions. Let me start up PyCharm here. So I think you've probably heard me say it before, the idea that if you have the same code in your program more than once, you should feel bad about yourself. That's my general rule of thumb. So loops was a great way for us to start taking care of some of that problem and feeling better about ourselves. Functions is the next step. It'll let us have a way to avoid writing the same code more than once. Well, that's about all it does. So we'll call this functions. Oh, this is what, week 6 functions or something? Week 6. I forget how we're naming these. I should go look. How do we name these? Okay, by week and, okay, perfect. Week 6 functions. There we go. All right, so with functions, we're going to start getting the ability to do more things than we've been able to do before. You probably don't necessarily need them, right? There's a way we could write our code to not use functions. So really, they're just like a trick, a time saver, a way to avoid having duplicate code, which is great. So if we've done this thing like, hey, I want to turn some value into an integer, that's actually a function, right? So like some number equals an int of an input, enter a number. So input here is actually a function built into the Python library, right? Python just knows input. So input is a function. Int is a function. You give int some value as a string, and it will try and turn it into an integer. So we've been using these built-in functions before, and it's been awesome, right? I think we did we do random numbers? Did import random, and a random number was random rand int from A to B, right? We did this one, 1 to 6. Rand int is a function, right? Some functions you have to give it some values, and it will do something. In this case, it will give us back a value, returns a value to us that we can use or assign or store or check to evaluate, put it in some kind of condition here. Int gives us back a value, input gives us back a value. What doesn't give us back a value is print. If I just say print, hi there, it's Monday, right? It doesn't return any values. So I've seen people occasionally do something like today equals a print here. And PyCharm is even going to tell us, hey, your function print doesn't return anything. You haven't done anything good here. And if I print today, nothing happens, right? I get nothing out. Enter a number, 10, sure. So we actually get the word none out. So if your function doesn't return a value, you get none. None is a special meaning in Python. In other languages, it's known as null. There is no value here. There's nothing here for you. So the print function didn't return anything, but like random, randint returns things, int returns things. We've used some functions before. But what we get to do now is we get to learn how to write our own, because that's awesome. So functions have a couple purposes. Like I said the first one already, it helps us reduce our repeated code. That's one of the main draws of functions, but I would argue that the other, probably even more important reason to use functions is to put a name to what that code is doing. It lets us put a name to what that code is doing. So we can say, hey, I want something that will, we'll say, hey, this will be, we're going to say define print happy Monday, and then a colon. So the def keyword is short for define. I don't know why they didn't just type it out. We're defining something called print happy Monday, and then a colon. So the colon, right, just like with our loops and things, means everything that is tabbed in underneath belongs to this. And here we'll print happy Monday. Okay. Now they get rather particular. It wants certain numbers of blank lines places. So if you get the yellow lines, they're just warnings. You don't have to fix them here. I like to fix them because it makes me happy not to see the yellow lines. It stresses me out when I see yellow lines everywhere in the code. It really doesn't matter at all. So I'm not going to care if you have yellow lines or not on yours. Okay. But now I have a nice name for print happy Monday. And instead of doing this silly thing like today is print happy Monday, I can say print happy Monday. I've written a function and it will print happy Monday. Now, this was not very interesting. It's not a very useful name here because I could have just had this print line here, but that's okay. We could add some other prints though, like print you excited for the week. I hope you have something fun planned. Right, and now everything that's tabbed in, right, belongs to this function here. After this colon that's tabbed in will run when I say print happy Monday. So what I can do, I can put it in debug mode. If I put a breakpoint in here, right, and I tell it to run, it will pause here, and I'll see it's actually going to go jump to that function, which is pretty cool. So we enter a number, like 10, sure. Oh, I hit run instead of debug. It will do debug mode if you click the bug, not the run button. That was just to illustrate. This will probably happen to you guys. I totally did that on purpose. I do that all the time. I'm so smart. So it gives those helpful examples. All right, so enter number 10. Now we're in debug mode, right? So Python is ready to run line 14. Right? We can see the value of our variables, random number, sum number. You can see all those. Now I've got a couple arrows. What we have done before, we did step over, right? We said run the next line. We've done this, right? Okay, good. I was getting some looks and I was confused. But now if we want to go into our function, I want the step into my code button here. This will step into my code, my function that I wrote here. You can also use the step into. I prefer step into my code just so you don't step into the other Python code by mistake. You can actually see the code for integer conversions if you want. I don't recommend it because it's not very helpful. So we want to step into my code and we'll see now it jumped to line 5. you'll see over here on the left, it actually showed me, hey, I was at main line 14, and I can go back there and see the value of my variables. Or now I can look at main line 5 here. There's no variables. Inside this function, it doesn't have access to any of those variables. None of those variables exist, which is a fun thing with functions. So as far as the function is concerned, some number or random number don't exist. We can't touch them. Okay. Cue the, is it, whose music does the Can't Touch This song? The Hammer Time guy, right? What's his name? MC Hammer. Thank you. Yeah, we should have that. Like, can't touch this, right? You can't get to the variables. But now we'll see. It'll run, print, print, print. And if we check our console here, we said, Happy Monday. Are you excited for the week? Hope you have something fun planned. And now we come back to line 14, right where we left off. And I said, okay, I did this thing. I'm ready to keep going. And now we're done. And there was nothing else to have happen.
Can you show how you're looking at the debug section now?
Yep. So instead of hitting run, I click the bug debug menu. And then if you have a breakpoint in there, so like this little gray space next to your line numbers, you just click. So you can't just click anywhere because it won't let you put a breakpoint if there's no code. But any line that has code, you can put a breakpoint on. And when it gets to one of those, it will stop and wait, and then it will show you the debug window here. This is the debugger tab, where you can see the value of your variables. And step and step and step. So if I just step over, it just runs, right? It didn't go into my code, which sometimes is fine. Maybe you don't want to have to step through every single line here. Right? You got the option of which one you want. Well, now we can print Happy Monday.
And then once you have the print thing, then what do you do? What do you do?
So once I have the breakpoint, then I hit run with debug.
Okay.
Or you can right click and say debug, or you can go to the run menu and click debug. There's always like 3 ways to do everything. So whichever you, or 4, right? Because you can hit Shift F9 if you like your keyboard shortcuts. Some people make it a goal to like never touch their mouse when they're programming, which is fantastic. Godspeed, you're amazing. I'm not that good. I'm going to touch my mouse all the time because that's just what I'm going to do. The people who program and don't touch their mice are much faster than I am, and that's okay. It's not really a race. I guess you might say there's a competition, right? Because if they're coding faster and they're being more productive and they're getting more work done, they'll look better. Sure. The amount of time you're saving by not having to grab your mouse is like halves of seconds. So yeah, you add up 50 times throughout the day, they've saved 30 seconds or something. Like, wow, that's a real win, yeah. But sure, that's fine. There's a cool guy who streams on Twitch. He's actually streaming right now. He likes the software tool called Vim or VI as an editor, and he is ridiculously fast in it because that's what he does day in and day out. And he codes way faster than I code. Like, probably gets more done in a couple hours than I would get done in a day, but that's okay. Like he got real good at it, and that's fine. I'm not jealous at all because I just don't have the time to learn. I don't know, to put into that. That's okay. But for most people, you're saving a few seconds here and there, and no one cares. All right, debugging. Sorry. So our print Happy Monday. We can go do something for any of these. Now, notice there's no value being returned here. They're just like that print. So if I said, some value is equal to Happy Monday, it's going to warn me and say, hey, doesn't return anything, just like the prints. So functions could just do something and then be done. They don't have to return values like random int or integer or those sorts of things here, right? No worries there. Now,
all of the functions you always have.
Yep, so we're using the parentheses here, yep, because we have parentheses up here. So when you define functions, they'll always have parentheses. A fun thing with Python is that this is legitimate code here. It won't call the function though. What print Happy Monday is the actual definition of this function, but it doesn't run. And it's not going to warn you about it here, which is the other silly thing, and it just won't happen. So it'll be really confusing. That's the other reason like debugging is nice here. All folks. Right, if we were to run this in debug mode, enter a number, we get to here and I step into my code, nothing happens. Right? We didn't execute the function. We just said, here's a function. Here's the name of it. So the parentheses are pretty important. They will make things work or not, essentially here. Oh, now printing Happy Monday is fine, but I don't know if you've noticed, like every day is a happy day, and you got to like at least try and be positive. You don't want to be like, what do they call that, toxic positivity? You don't want that, but at least like attempt to try and have a positive day, and that's okay. So instead of like being Happy Monday and having another function for Happy Tuesday, another function for Happy Wednesday, another function for Happy Thursday, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to have one for each day of the week? Thinking, yeah, that'd be really nice. So I'm going to make another function called print happy day. And then in parentheses here, I'm going to say, tell me what day here. So if you put something inside the parentheses, this is known as a parameter. So you can include parameters. Parameters are optional when making functions, right? So if we just call print, right, I can say print. Oh, sorry, I have to finish this. We'll just print. Right? Print doesn't need any parameters. It's happy to print all by itself, right? I think we've done this once or twice. It just prints an empty line, right? It just goes down a line. If you want to give it a parameter, we can give it a parameter. Right? So we've seen some functions take parameters, some functions don't take parameters. Print is special in that it can do either. We'll get to that later, but it's not new that functions take parameters. Like input can take a parameter. Integer takes a parameter. Now, technically, some people like to argue things because computer scientists love to argue stuff, and I just don't have the energy to argue with people most of the time. But day is a parameter. When you give something a value here, that's all, folks, is not a parameter, it's an argument. The argument fulfills the parameter. I don't know why there's such a big distinction here. Most of the time, I just call them all arguments because that's just what I call them. Sometimes I'll call them all parameters, but parameter is harder to say than argument. I feel like. I don't know, maybe it's not. But so in my function definition, this is the parameter. When I call my function, I give it an argument that is treated as this parameter. So what I can do is I can say print day here. Whatever value you give me for day, whatever argument you give me, I'm going to take here and we'll say, great, here's day. And I'll do something with it. In my case, I'm going to print. It's not the most interesting. So maybe we'll say, how about we say happy, comma, day. Right? Whatever day you give me, I'll just say happy that something. So now I can say I want to print happy day given Monday. And when I run this one, enter a number, great, we get happy Monday because I gave it Monday. If I want to pretend like it's Tuesday, right, I can give it a different day, Tuesday. We'll get happy Monday, happy Tuesday. Right? Whatever value we're giving it, that function will just work with it and say, great, that's awesome, we like it. Now the problem is day has nothing here to indicate that it should be a string, right? I could also say print happy day given 10. Python's fine with that. Happy 10. Not very useful. But Python says, sure, I'll do it. You want me to print a value? Go for it. Now, occasionally we're going to do something with these parameters that Python won't be cool with. Like if I try and do some arithmetic here and you give me a string instead of a number, it just won't work, right? So again, we're kind of trusty and assuming that people will do the right thing, that people will give me the parameter that I want. There's ways to do some sort of checking. Python 3 has some fun stuff for that. We don't typically get into that. It's just more trouble than it's worth usually. So if you write a function and you give it the wrong thing, that's on you, right? That's just your fault. You did it wrong. We just kind of assume. And if you get bad results, it's because you did it wrong. That's your fault. Okay? So it works here, but you'll get some weird results, and that's okay. So we can write functions that don't have arguments or that do have arguments or parameters. Sorry. Either way is perfectly fine. Whatever you wanted to write here. So another fun thing we could do, we could define write a function for print larger number. Give it a first number, and then if you want more than one argument, you just comma separate them. Second number. So I can say, hey, if my first number is greater than my second number, let's print first number, right? Else, we'll print the second number. So my function can have any other kind of Python code that we want in it here. So we'll input a number, we'll get a random number, and let's print the larger number given some number and the random number. Let's see which one's larger. Right, now let's put this in debug mode. Let's watch it here. So when I run in the debug mode, so what number should we enter? 3. Okay, so random number is 1, some number is 3. If we step into our code here, we're going to step into our print larger number function. Now we see first number is 3, second number is 1. So inside the function, we can see the values of the arguments given to us, which is cool. So now we can see the value of what was given here. We don't see the rest, right? We can't touch the rest of the values here, but anything we were given, we can see the values of inside the function. So this idea of like scope, right, where you can access variables, right? If you create a variable inside an if block, you can't use it outside the if block. If you create a variable inside a function, you can't use it outside the function. Parameters or arguments are basically the same thing, right? You can only use them inside the function. That's all they exist for. Right, so then we'll see we should get first is larger because first is 3, so it should print 3. So in the console we printed out 3, and then we come back to line 26 and ready to keep on going. So at some point there is a maximum number of parameters you can have. I forget what it is. It's really large. I don't recommend you have more than like 5 or 6. Beyond that, it just starts to get a little crazy. But you can have a function with like 100 parameters. Go for it. Go nuts. Right? Well, whatever makes sense for you. If that's what we need to do in the code, that's okay. And we'll see later on. There are some functions we work with that have tons of parameters, and then you'll see why it's confusing. So now you'll notice I just gave it a value, comma, another value. So the order in which we give them is the order in which they're treated. So the first thing we give it is the first parameter. The second thing we give it is the second parameter. Right? If I have a third thing, I could have a third number. Right? We could do that, and we'll pass it a third number. How about we just pass it 7? Sure. Well, now to find the largest one, we need to print out the largest one. Well, okay, this is not probably what we want to do here. Maybe we just say we want to print the max of a list of first number, second number, third number. Yeah. It wasn't true, so it probably would do the second thing. Let me actually copy this. So I'll go put it back to the way it was. So if the first is not greater than the second, then else happens. Yep. Yeah, let me do print larger number. So now Python's upset that I have another function. Oh, I'm sorry, no, it's not. It was just the line numbers here. I have 2 functions here with the same name. It's a little weird. I give it 7. We run into debug mode. Enter a number. Step into my code. It picked the right one. It found the one that had 3 arguments. Right? It's going to print the max of this, right, which should be 10. Looks like. Do we print out 10? We printed 10. Cool. I can still use my other function then, with just 2 values. Enter a number, 10. Right, now we're doing, oh, I wanted to step into my code here. Into my code. Did I miss it? Uh-oh. Python's upset with us. It says a type error, print larger number missing 1 required position argument, third number. So Python lets us do this. But what happens here, when you define a function, the last one wins. So we defined it, and we told Python, hey, you know what? I changed my mind. I want this one instead. It says, okay, sure. I'll take the last definition you give me here. So we can't have a function with 2 and with 3 arguments. It's no good here. We did a bad thing. Let's just go comment this out real quick. That one, right? And I'm going to try and run it. We get that same error. Missing one required position or argument, third number. Doesn't work. Now this one should work. We get the largest number here. We print the larger number. So you can have lots of different arguments if you want. Go for it. That's an option. Okay, so far, all of our functions, yeah, the question? I'm sorry? Yeah. So I use another set of parentheses to make them a tuple. Does it work if I don't give it that? Is Max going to take that? Let's see if it works. Oh, it does. Okay, nice. Thought I had to make it be a tuple first. Thanks. Max is smart. Max is a fun function here. That's not very helpful, what it's showing here. With a single iterable argument returns the biggest item. The default keyword-only argument specifies an object to return if the provided iterable is empty. With 2 or more arguments, return the largest argument. So you can give it arguments, or you can give it to something that is iterable, or like a list or a collection. You'll find the max. That's handy. Undo, like you're typing?
Like if I type with someone and coded multiple times in the project, I would like delete code and
Yep.
be like, I need that code, but I've already deleted it. Is there a way for me to like undo the deletion?
Yeah, Control Z is undo, or edit and undo typing, or redo.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So undo is definitely your friend. I'll use that a lot.
Just remember everything you put in here. So
It can remember a lot. I don't remember how large of an undo buffer it has. I'm sorry? It's not too far? All right, let's see. Let me copy all of that. I'm going to start undoing here. Control Z for undo. That's got a decent... Wait, yeah, so it's only remembering stuff that you've typed now. Like once you save and close, it's gone. Yep. But I'll just put it all back. Yeah, so it remembers a decent amount here, as long as you have PyCharm open. Yep. Yeah, undo is really handy. Those are handy shortcuts. Thanks for asking. Why does it not want a space? I hate all these yellow lines. They just irritate me. All right, put that over here, I guess. All right, we got rid of our yellow lines. We're happy. So far, all of our functions have just done something, but they never gave any values back, right? Like integer or random int, those give us values back that we can use, right? So other kinds of functions, if you want to return a value, to give a value back, we use the return word. We'll define, I don't know, get random number 1 to 6. Not a very interesting function here, but now we have a nice name for what's happening. I can return random randint 1 to 6. Right, I can use this function then, get random number 1 to 6, instead of random randint 1 to 6. Because I use the return word here. So return is what gives back a value. We didn't really save anything here. We just made our own function. Not the most interesting. But it's simple. Right? Gets the random number 1 to 6. If we wanted to write a function here, get daily affirmation. Am I spelling 2S? There we go. I love that it spell checks for me because I'm terrible at spelling. It's definitely not my strong suit as a kid or as an adult. It's okay. Like everything I do has spell checks. So All right, so if you want to get a daily affirmation here, let's just go look, Google some daily affirmations. All right, here we go. There we go. No, I just want a list of them. Okay, here we go. So we're going to cite our source here because this is academia. We cite our source, right? So this is the right thing to do. No, I don't want any of that. And let me just grab a couple of these here. And we'll throw some in. So this will be my affirmation list, right? And then we can do it as a tuple. I don't think it needs to be a list necessarily. Oh, that did not paste very well, but that's okay. And we'll start putting these in quotes. Bunch of quotes, bunch of quotes. And why did the last one not? Okay, that's fine. Oh, some of them doubled. Okay, I think we're good there, and then we just need to comma separate now, right? Do some spacing, sure. Hector, my friend, thanks so much for donating those bits to the Student Scholarship Fund here at the University of Michigan Dearborn College of Engineering and Computer Science. All right, I got that out in one breath. That is awesome. We just keep adding up. I know, like $1 is not a whole lot every now and then, but we're adding up, and I think we're close to like $500 raised for the scholarship fund, just because I think Twitch is cool and we've got a fun community. So I think that's entertaining and probably worth the 30 seconds of ads you get when you first pop in class. So until they change things, I think we'll keep on using the platform if that's okay with you. Anyway, so we have an affirmation list here now, right? So I can pick one of those and return it. Right? These are all by index. I have index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I just counted. It wasn't that hard. But if I had a larger list, it might be trickier. So what I want to do is pick a random one here. We got a lot of different choices here, and some of you folks did a really nice job. You looked up when we did our lab here. You said Python random item from list. I'm assuming is what you probably Googled, and found something that looked like a decent link here. Geek for Geeks don't usually have lots of garbage, and it has random choice. Picks a random value from a list. We'll just pick a random one out of a list. Go for it. So we can return my affirmation list. I'm sorry, random.choice from my affirmation list. It'll pick a random one for me. That's the easy way here, right? And maybe we could even cite our source here because I don't know. I'm sure this is somewhere in the Zybook. The Zybooks should be fair game. If you're getting an example out of Zybooks, I'm assuming you used your textbook, right? We should be good here. The textbook shouldn't have something you can like copy paste in for an entire assignment, so I think we're fine, right? No need to like individually call those ones out here. Other than that, go for it here. The slightly harder way here, if you didn't know this or didn't want to go Google it here and only have used the things we've done so far, you might have said, hey, let me get an index here. Is going to be random randint. I want to start from 0 and I'm going to go up to the length of my affirmation list -1, right? Because length, if I have 8 items, will give me 8, but I only want up to 7 for indexes here. So if I take the length -1, then we'll stop at that last index, right? There is no index 8 when I have 8 items. And then we can return my affirmations index of my index, right? Or maybe we call this a random index, right? So again, both ways get the job done. I'm pretty sure Choice does like the exact same thing behind the scenes. I would have to go look here. That's essentially the same thing here. So if you went and looked it up, fantastic. That's great. Looking things up is a very useful skill here. There's actually a shirt. I don't have a copy of it yet, but it's on my wish list, and I'm hoping someone gets it for me for the holidays here. Programmer. It's a funny shirt. Let me see if I can find it here. This one, I think. So when I say I'm a software developer, what people hear is I can repair, fix your internet, configure your printer, revive your phone, set up your email, hack into any system all for free. What I mean is I can Google better than the average bear. It's legitimately a necessary skill for developers. You've got to go out and find information. And I prefer Bing because they give me free coffee. I'll be honest here, but pretty much any search engine you like, go for it here. Perfectly fine. They're all taking your information. I guess DuckDuckGo doesn't. So if you care about that, use that search engine. I get better results because they know I'm a developer now, though. So like, I like that personalization sometimes, depending on what you're searching. I guess maybe you don't want some of those search results in history, but that's up to you. So yeah, you can Google better than the average bear. So learn to Google things. It's a good skill for sure. But this is academia, so if you Google something, if it's not your idea, cite your source. Super easy. We're all cool. I didn't care if people found this. It's not like you didn't steal anything from anybody. You're not like turning in someone else's work as your own. You just found a function. But it's a good habit to cite your source here. Okay. So in general, I would like you to cite sources, even if you just found here's a cool function that we didn't know about existed. If it's random choice, that's fine. Like it was in the Python library. I don't care here. So I'm not going to like be hard on anybody for finding choice, but just be in the habit of, hey, I found something online. Just drop it in as a comment. That's all you got to do. Like, hey, I found it here. All right. So our daily affirmation then will return one of those randomly. So we can say, happy Monday, happy Tuesday, whatever. And then we want to, now in this case, it's returning a string. It's not printing anything. There's no print happening with my get daily affirmation. Right? It just gives me back a string. So what I could do then, I could print my get daily affirmation if I wanted to show it in the console here. If I wanted to save it somewhere, I don't like here Monday affirmation. I could say, hey, Monday affirmation is my get daily affirmation. And then if I wanted to print it, we could then go print the Monday affirmation or something like that, or do all sorts of fun stuff here. We could take our Monday affirmation and get the sum of all the numeric values of the letters and see what our lucky number is, and then go buy a lotto ticket because obviously we will win if we sum up the numbers because it must mean something. It's probably old me making fun of that by now, but it still entertains me. I apologize. So that's okay. Enter a number. Great. So our Monday affirmation is I'm grateful for the people I have in my life. If we run it again, we probably get a different one, right? Because it should be pretty random. There we go. I grow and improve every day. Man, this is true. If you want a field where you're going to keep learning things every day, stay in software, data science, software. They're all kind of related here. You will learn things every day. It's really cool, which is a lot of fun because the field changes all the time. It's always new stuff. And it's actually a really cool industry because there's this website. You've probably seen Stack Overflow right before. It's literally people in the industry posting questions like, hey, I don't know what's happening here. Can you help me with this? And other people who are not getting paid go and answer their questions just because they think it's cool, right? This is one cool thing in the developer community. And the other cool thing in the developer community is open source software. People said, hey, I wrote a cool thing. They want to use it for free? Have it. Literally why we have the Linux operating system, right? Linus Torvalds said, hey, I can make a cool operating system. Anyone want to play with it? And it's great. We have that. All sorts of cool open source software. OBS that I'm using, right? This open broadcast software, open source software. So I can stream to Twitch because people said, hey, I want to make some software that's cool and you can have it for free. It's really cool. Yeah.
Flow the code.
Yeah.
So your function here, which is a bunch of statements, that random choice chooses from the statement. So I could put anything in those statements and return one of the statements.
Yep.
And then printing. So the return command isn't printed.
Yep.
We don't just automatically.
Yeah. So return command lets me assign it to something, so I can go and save it and use it or store it or make a bunch of these things and compare them, find which one I want, or maybe I can make a dictionary with like keys of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Each one gets its own daily affirmation. We got lots of choices here. So if you return a value, you can go use it later. If the only thing your function does is print something, you don't have access to that thing that was printed anymore, which maybe that's fine. Maybe you just wanted to say Happy Monday. That was it. But if you're going to do something with that value later, you want to make sure you can return it. So you can store the value in a variable and do something with it later on.
If you put something in an you have big daily affirmations, if you put an argument in there, would that make it crash or what would that be?
Like if I took 10, type error. Get daily affirmation takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was given. So it says it doesn't want any arguments, and you gave it one. It just dies on you. Kind of like we saw when we were doing the larger numbers. If it doesn't fit, Python crashes on you. Right? If it wants 2 arguments and you give it 3, crashes. If it wants 2 arguments and you give it 1, it crashes. If it wants no arguments, you give it something, it crashes. So you've got to do the right thing with them. And usually they're pretty handy here. So like when you look and start typing a function here, like a print larger number, see, it's telling me I should give it first number, second number, third number. This IntelliSense is saying, hey, you need to give it 3 things. Sometimes it'll show it. Yeah, so it just highlights now, hey, give it 3 things. First number, second number, third number. And this is another reason to have nice variable names. It could be A, B, and C. We don't really care, right? A, B, and C is perfectly fine. But if you give it a meaningful name, when I'm going and using it later, I see a meaningful name. This is why I don't like random randint, because you get A and B. Like, what is A and B? Why don't they say like minimum and maximum? That'd be so much easier for me to understand. I mean, we sort of get, okay, here's probably 2 values, here's probably the low and the high, but they could have made it be much more clear, and they didn't. And that always upsets me about Python, but that's okay. Smarter people than me wrote it, so it's okay. Yeah, so those arguments, the parameter names will come through in your IntelliSense here and show you which one it wants, and then it just will crash if it doesn't fit. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so we can get our daily affirmation, we can print the affirmation, we can do things with it, we could turn it out to uppercase, to lowercase, right? Once we return the value, we can start manipulating it here, if you wanted. So then our Monday affirmation dot Monday affirmation dot turn it to uppercase if we wanted, these sorts of things, right? We got choices, whatever we wanted to do with these here, once we have the value. Now, Python's a little confused because it doesn't, I mean, it should know that it's returning a string, but it doesn't necessarily know that it's returning a string. Like usually if we have our string here, like some string, I can say some string dot, and we get all the suggestions here because Python knows it's a string, which is nice. For the Monday affirmation, you saw when I did dot, I didn't really get much here. Python's not really sure that it's always going to be a string. Sometimes it gets a little confused. So sometimes you don't get all that IntelliSense with Python, which is one of the downsides, but that's okay. If you really like all the IntelliSense stuff, you can say, hey, turn it into a string, please. Then you get all your string stuff. You haven't really changed anything, but now at least you'll get your type ahead, you know. And you can do, what is it, like title casing if you want here. Right, and then we can print it out. I think it was a title case already. I don't remember if it was title case already or not. Uh-oh. Did we break it? Did I change that? Print larger number? Oh, sorry, that was this one. Showing how that would break. Yeah, I think that was a title case already. So like trying to change it to title case didn't really matter because I think they were all title case. I wonder if it lowercase is that. I don't remember how smart title casing is. But... oh, this was not the same. Did that wrong. There we go. That one also got split. We have less affirmations now, but I try. I guess I try. That's a good affirmation, right? Like, I try, period. That counts as a daily affirmation. We like that. All right. So we can do that. So we got functions here. Let me take a look, see how we're doing. Because there's a lot to functions, so we're not going to get through it all today for sure. Our functions, printing, typing, defining, math functions, stubs, yeah, branches and loops. Functions or objects are weird. We'll get into that later. Yeah, I think we're doing pretty good. Pretty good so far. And I turned on all the labs for loops. Okay, good. Turn on the labs for loops. Oh, speaking of loops, I had forgot to post the quiz for it after Wednesday. So when I remembered on Friday, I posted it and said, hey, have a week for it. If that's bad with your schedule, feel free to take another day or two. Canvas will accept it late. It will mark it as late, and I will just say that's perfectly fine. That's my bad for giving it to you on a Friday. I still gave you a week to do it, but you know, if that didn't fit your schedule right, feel free to take some more time on it. okay? But like not more than another couple days, right? No more than a week, please, because you don't want to get behind. So again, hopefully these are like 3 points for you, just a chance to go through. If I marked something wrong and you don't know why, I tried to leave some feedback there. On some of them, I didn't. Happy to go over the answers with you. I've noticed if I try and do it in class, people just don't care. So my default for these is I will take them as individual questions. If you're not sure why someone was wrong, just ask me, and we can do that individually rather than spend the time to go over it as a whole class. Is that okay? If you want, I can do it. Totally up to you folks, but most of the time people say just do it individually. So I think we're all up to date on quiz grades. Aside from that, I had lots of time sitting in the hospital over the weekend to just grade some quizzes, which was nice. So I still got to get your projects in. On that, we're doing pretty good. Ooh, someone actually did the quiz already. Look at that. Good job. You got it done early. Yeah, so the midterm is literally pulled from the quizzes for the first half and then programming questions for the second half. Yeah, and you can go see your answers. Like, I hate tests, but I get funny looks if my syllabus doesn't have a test on it.
So they'd be the
same exact questions. Yeah. I hate tests. It's not a good measure of if you know anything. It's a measure of if you've memorized something, I should say. I don't think that matters. No one has ever asked me to write some code from memory in a professional setting. For interviews, yes, because our interview process is crazy in tech, and thankfully it's getting a little better. We're working on it here. We know interviews are terrible in tech, but most of the time, if you're getting paid to do some work, they don't say, please do it off the top of your head. They say, do it right and use your resources because we want good quality code, right? So I would like to reflect that with the tests. And then, if you can write good quality code, that's what I care about at the end of the day. So, okay. Awesome. So we're doing pretty good with functions. This last we'll talk about functions that are objects here, because this is a fun one. So you said, hey, if I just say print Happy Monday and I don't do the parentheses, I get weird stuff, which is true, right? We get some weird stuff here. So one thing that we can do with functions, let's see, kind of like their example, but that's okay. I don't want to steal their whole example. Let's have a function for let's split this up here. So I'm going to make a function. We'll call this positivity. Given a greeting and it's an affirmation. We'll call this our positivity function. What you can do is, as an argument, you can give it another function. Which sounds really crazy. I could say, hey, greeting, parentheses. Say, hey, you gave me a function for a greeting. I'm going to run that function with the parentheses here. And then we can print the affirmation. Seems really weird. There are very good cases for doing this. We're not really going to get to them even in your first 2 semesters of coding, of why passing functions would be useful. But just keep it in your back pocket. You can pass a function as an argument here. So I can say, hey, let's do some positivity here. Let's call our positivity function. I'm going to give it my print. Where's my print Monday? Print Happy Monday. Yeah, print Happy Monday. So I'll give it the print Happy Monday function without parentheses, because I'm giving it the definition of the function. So this passes the definition of the function. Doesn't run it yet. And definition. There we go. And then I'll give it my Monday affirmation as the other string that will get printed out. So if I put a breakpoint in here and I run this in debug mode, number, we don't need that one. Let's continue. Okay, so we got the positivity. So if I step into my code here, it says, okay, we're in the positivity function. We have an affirmation. I don't really see the greeting. There's nothing really to see in debugger because there's no technical value there. Right? The value is it's a function. But if I step into here now, it says, hey, call this greeting thing here. It runs my print happy Monday. We've just named it greeting inside of this function here. So essentially given it an alias, right? Here's another name for print happy Monday. We're going to call it greeting. And then it will run this greeting function here, which is fun. We'll print those out. And then it will print my affirmation that I gave it, which is I always try to see the bright side of things. So you can pass a function as an argument if you want. They have a really cute example. It prints some sort of like stick figure, and you can print a different head shape based on whichever printing head shape function you give it. And then you always get the same body or some stuff. So you can check that out in the Zybook. Again, it's good to know that it works. It's not super practical for us for quite some time. Later on in advanced Python stuff, advanced coding, it's really cool and powerful that you can pass functions around like that. We're just not going to get there, I'm sorry. So just, it will work and it will do weird things. So you can give arguments, all sorts of types of arguments to functions here. They just don't always behave as you expect. So if you're not sure, your best bet is put it in debug mode and see what it's doing. Right? You can step in and step in and step in and see. And if it like just jumps over it, it's not running it, and then maybe that will trigger, oh, I didn't add the parentheses here, right? Because this is perfectly legitimate Python code. It's the definition of the function. It just doesn't run here. It does nothing because we didn't put the parentheses. But you can like pass it as an argument, and then when you throw some arguments on or some parentheses on, it actually goes and runs it. That sort of thing, which is pretty fun. Lots of fun things we can do with functions.
And there's no limit to the breakpoints when you're debugging.
No, you can put a breakpoint in every single line if you want. So usually I put it where I want it to start being paused, like to look at the last thing. But if you put a breakpoint up at like the first line, you can just step through every single line from there. So usually just if you don't care about the first couple, then you'll put it down to wherever you want it to start seeing what the values are.
But it'll still start at the beginning.
Yeah, it'll start the program at the top, and then we'll pause when it gets to this line, essentially. Yep. Yeah, so debugging is fantastic. Definitely worth your time practicing with that. It probably didn't do a whole lot up until now. Now that we have functions that we can jump around from here to there to here to there, you can do all sorts of stuff. And then one last thing, I guess I showed you here. A function can call another function. Right? It doesn't even have to be like, you have to pass the name of the function here. So in print happy day, I could say print happy Monday. And then it will print the other thing, right? So anytime you want, you can call another function. Here. Give that a little run. So now my print happy day prints happy Monday, calls the print happy Monday function. So if we put this in debug mode and watch it, we'll see it gets stacked up 3 times. So I'm in happy day at line 17. I step in. Now I'm at print happy Monday at line 10. When it's done, it'll come back to print happy day at line 17. When that one's done, it'll come back to main at line 67. Right? It remembers where it was when you called these functions. Python's really smart and pretty good at tracking that sort of stuff here. What you want to be careful about here is that print happy Monday, let's just do 2 other functions here. Let's print, this will be the last ones, I promise. Find first function, and the first function says print first, and then we define a second function, and this will print second. If first calls second, and second calls first, what do you think is going to happen? Yeah, it's infinite loop. Not technically infinite because it will crash. So we run this one here. We get, maximum recursion depth exceeded while calling a Python object. That's another error for another time. We'll get into recursion later, but essentially it never ended and it crashed Python because Python got confused. Right? Like an infinite while loop will just run forever. Python will never stop, but a function that calls a function that calls a function that calls a function eventually will crash. So there is a limit to how many functions you can have stacked up. It's somewhere around 1,000. So if you had 1,000 different functions, first, second, like you could crash Python that way as well. But we're not going to do that much typing. So these are bad, and will crash. Okay. I will leave that commented out to avoid crashing here. All right, so I think we're pretty good. We'll have a little bit of time. I'm going to go get some coffee before lab starts at 2. We'll start with some functions. We'll come back on Wednesday. We'll talk more about functions. There's lots of other things about functions we can do. And then come next Monday, we can start talking about strings, and we'll have another lab on functions and strings. And I think we should be in pretty good shape from there. Does that sound okay for a tentative schedule? All right. Awesome. So if you don't have anything else, I'll see you in about half an hour. Thanks, folks.